Hi, I'm Zane from Drive Them All, the YouTube channel where I drive anything I can get my hands on and let you know what I think about it. This week I have something truly special for you. It's unique, it's exciting, it's not a car, and it's also not a motorcycle, but it does have three wheels. This is the Polaris Slingshot. If you've never seen a Polaris Slingshot in person, you're missing out. Aside from a Ferrari, McLaren, Lamborghini, or another supercar, the Slingshot is one of the wildest looking vehicles you'll ever lay your eyes on. It's angular, aggressive, and can't be mistaken for anything else on the road. I got my first experience driving the Polaris Slingshot last year. I did a video for the gm-trucks.com YouTube channel, and I'm gonna put a link below so you can go and watch that video right now, because I'm gonna be talking about today, this is the 2021 model, and they've made some improvements. If you haven't seen my video, stop what you're doing, go down to the description and watch my other video on the 2020 model, and then come back here and finish up this video. And so I'm gonna give you a moment. Okay, now that you're back, this is the 2021 model. They've made some changes to the way the transmission shifts and everything. So let's go over and see if any of those improvements have made a difference on the Polaris Slingshot. So last year we drove the 2020 Slingshot R with auto drive, a Manumatic hydraulically shifted automatic transmission. This year we're driving a 2021 Slingshot R limited edition with auto drive and paddle shifters. Now the paddle shifters are all new for this year, and if you watched my video on the 2020, you'd know that that auto drive transmission was one of my biggest complaints. It shifted slowly, it shifted at weird times, it overall detracted from the rest of the vehicle, which was magnificent. So Polaris, heeding my advice, made some very small adjustments to the way the transmission acts, and through the addition of the paddle shifters is giving us the choice of what gear we can be in with the auto drive transmission. But before we get behind the wheel and take a drive in the Slingshot, let's refresh ourselves with how it looks, what its specs are, and what kind of creature comforts you can expect. As I said before, and it's worth repeating, the Slingshot is unlike any vehicle you'll see on the road today. Not just because of its three-wheeled configuration, but also because of its hard-edged styling. Up front, the V-shaped LED DRLs are menacing and give a false impression of where the headlights are actually located, which turns out to be in the middle of the hood. The front end is low and wide, barely covering the front wheels. Out back, the single rear wheel is accentuated and the focal point. It's huge, giving the Slingshot an aggressive stance from the rear end. As I mentioned before, this particular Slingshot is a 2021 R limited edition. It's the top of the line trim, and it comes with this cool asymmetrical graphics package that looks different from left to right, and this extremely bright neon fade color that, I guess if I had to quantify it, I'd say it's somewhere between highlighter yellow and lime green. So while this R limited edition behind me is the cream of the crop, the top of the Slingshot lineup, there are actually three trim levels that you can find below it, all of them of which have either manual or auto drive automatic transmissions. There's the S, which starts just below $20,000, the SL, and the R. And as you go up the trim ladder, you get more and more features, which include a windscreen, a Rockford Fosgate audio system, the auto drive paddle shift system, and the Polaris Ride Command 7-inch infotainment system, which new for 2021 includes Apple CarPlay compatibility. But while the S trim level starts at a somewhat reasonable $19,995, this fully equipped R limited edition has an MSRP of $34,795. $199 as of July 2021. Under that wide hood is a 2.0-liter inline 4-cylinder engine that is a derivative of what you'd find in Polaris's side-by-side lineup. It produces 203 horsepower on R trim levels and 178 horsepower on S and SL trim levels. Inside the Slingshot, you're going to find a fully waterproof interior, along with 2 seats side by side, complete with belts, along with an actual steering wheel like a car. Unlike a car, you actually have no doors or even a roof, which means that your driving experience in the Slingshot is more akin to a motorcycle without actually having to learn how to drive a motorcycle. The gauge cluster is pulled right out of Polaris's side-by-side lineup and gives you all of the relevant information, including your speed, the tachometer, outside ambient temperature, range, engine temperature, and trip and other engine information. In the middle of the console is a push-button transmission and manual parking brake, along with 2 cup holders and a small storage compartment. If you'd like to bring along stuff for longer trips, well, the Slingshot has a few storage areas which are unfortunately not very big. There's a glove compartment up front and 2 storage hatches behind each seat that are about the size of a helmet. Polaris also offers a handful of accessory storage bags for extra stuff. Bringing along 2 backpacks should be no problem, but don't even think about a suitcase. So now that we've talked about the Slingshot, what it looks like on the outside and what its specs are, let's go ahead and take it for a drive. All right, we're out here behind the wheel driving down the road of the 2021 Polaris Slingshot. And so let's take a few moments to talk about how this thing drives, what it's like, and what you can expect if you're going to go out and buy one for yourself. So most importantly, seating position. This thing is just like a car. You've got the steering wheel, the seats, you drive it like a car, even though it's classified as a motorcycle in some states. It is just like driving a car, especially with the auto drive transmission. There's literally no thought to this. It just shifts and goes and is really easy. As you're driving around, one of the things that you're going to notice is the road noise and the engine noise. The biggest amount of noise you're going to hear is not from the wind, it's going to be from the Slingshot itself. The engine and transmission are not exactly quiet. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. It's not exactly a big throaty kind of sound. It is a 4-cylinder engine, 2 liters, so it does kind of buzz a little bit and give you that motorcycle type feel without some of the smoothness and refinement that you may find in a motorcycle. One of the other things you're probably going to see is this windscreen, which on the R models is smoked and tinted. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm a little bit shorter. You're mounted on my chin, so you're probably almost looking through that windscreen right now, and it's going to be blocking some of your view. On the lower trim levels, it is clear, which will make seeing through it a little bit better. But for people like me who are not exactly tall enough to see on over top of it entirely, it does add this element of kind of blocking your view a bit. And that's okay. You do get used to it as time goes on, but it is something you have to deal with. It's there out in front of you. I do like that the windscreen is there. It keeps the wind off your face and off your helmet directly, so you're not getting buffeted around. But at the same time, I'd really like to be able to see through it a little bit better. Maybe, an inch shorter or clear would be a little more preferable for me and at least my height and size. Handling on the Slingshot is where this thing is at. Even though it's only got 3 wheels, it can carve up the turns like nobody's business with that massive tire out there in the back and 2 really decently sized pieces of rubber in the front. This thing has a cornering rating of about 1.02 Gs in the skid pad, which is, this is Corvette territory in terms of handling. This is no joke. This thing, if you point and turn that steering wheel, it is going to go wherever you want it to go. The only caveat to this is that with only one tire in the back and with that one tire footprint, it is a little more susceptible to debris on the road in turns, or just generalized bumps. See, when you're in a car and you've got two tires on each side, you can drive over a pothole or a bump in the road or an imperfection that you want to miss. But with three tires all equally spaced from left to right, it's kind of impossible. If you miss a bump with one of the front tires, you're going to hit it with the rear. And if you miss it with the rear, you're going to hit it with one of the fronts. So in that regard, you're going to not have as smooth of a ride as you would in a motorcycle or a car, because that contact patch is basically spread out over your entire lane. And although it does take some getting used to, it's not the worst thing in the world. The auto drive has seen a massive improvement for 2021. Polaris has retuned all of the shift points in addition to the paddle shifters, which we'll go over in a second. But that gives that manual action automatic and the clutch system that's in it kind of adds a lot of character to the Slingshot. You hear noises that you normally wouldn't associate with a motorcycle or a car. It kind of talks to you, and you get these weird vibrations and noises that come through underneath, and it takes some getting used to, I gotta admit. Normally you don't hear all those kind of noises when you're driving in a car or a motorcycle. Things are a little bit smoother, but this Slingshot is raunchous. It's like an angry hornet's nest. It just wants to go. It doesn't care about being overly smooth or pleasant to listen to. It just wants to let you know that it's in charge and doing the job that you want it to do, which is moving you forward, shifting the gears. It doesn't care how much of that process you actually end up hearing. And that's part of the Slingshot's charm. You may want an overly refined vehicle, or if you want an overly refined vehicle, the Slingshot is not it. You are getting a raw machine that is super fun to drive, but definitely a little rough around the edges. But like I said, that's part of the reason why you buy this thing, because that's what you want. So if we shift into manual here, we can click down through the gears. The shifting is actually really responsive. Adding the paddle shifters was probably the best decision. You hear that? You hear that kind of gear whine? It's weird. It's interesting. Like I said, this thing's got a lot of character. Anyways, the paddle shifters were the absolute best decision that Polaris could have made for this vehicle. It gives you a lot more control over it and ups the fun quotient quite a bit. You don't have to have a manual to sit and shift through the gears and tell the Slingshot where you want to be. It respects which gears that you tell it to go to. It downshifts and rev matches and just does a generally good job. When we had the 2020 model last year without the paddle shifters, my biggest complaint was the transmission. It didn't know where it wanted to be. Every time you were on and off the throttle, it was shifting a different place. When you stopped from or started from a stop, it just took forever to get to second gear and kind of seemed like it slowed the whole process down. Not anymore. Polaris has worked their magic on this machine, and it's great. It's a lot of fun now. Stopping on the Slingshot is generally pretty easy, although I would not say it is one of its best traits. Let's give it a full squeeze here. Yeah, that wasn't too bad. The pedal feel isn't the best, but the stopping power is definitely right there. So although when you push down the pedal, you kind of may get a little bit of a spongy feel back, it is actually delivering those brake pedals or brake pads to the rotors quite nicely. So there you have it. That's the Polaris Slingshot. Weird, unique, interesting, but most importantly, it's fun to drive. So that brings us to the all-important question. Is the 2021 Slingshot better than the 2020 model that we had a few small problems with last year? And the great news is I can say yes. The small tuning changes that Polaris has made on the auto drive transmission have made all the difference. The paddle shifters, which are all new for 2021, actually are incredibly satisfying. And to be able to choose which gear you're going in down the road is all we've ever asked for. But we still have one small nitpicky item, and that's the price. At $34,000 for the R limited edition, heck, even $20,000 for the base S, you're still talking about a heck of a lot of money. And if all you really want is a open top convertible style drive, well, for $20,000 to $40,000, there's a lot of convertible options. But if what your heart desires is a motorcycle style drive, heck, you can have that for a quarter of the price. But there's one way that the Slingshot absolutely crushes everything else. Motorcycle, convertible, sports car, 2 wheels, 3 wheels, or 4 wheels, the Slingshot is the king of turning heads. You will get so much attention driving this vehicle, whether you're on the highway, in the city, going by a gas station, or a group of people. Everyone is going to turn their heads and gaze their eyes upon you when you drive by. And to me, that's worth a lot of money. I'm Zane from Drive Them All, and I'll see you next time.